So today is Thursday, June 30th. Welcome to the Rhinebeck Planning Council. I believe we should start with some introductions. So obviously I am your elected committee co-chair, Matthew Lucero from Village Care, and I'll start on my left.
David Fox, Planning Council staff.
You did them on purpose. I'm Katrina, consumer co-chair and Lower East Side Harm Reduction Center.
Believe it or not, I wasn't staring as if he was inappropriately eating at the time, but
John Hellman, LGBT Community Center.
Carrie Davis, co-chair, Needs Assessment Committee and LGBT Community Center.
Derek Weeks, Westchester Medical Center, co-chair, Tri-County Steering Committee.
Andy Strauss, Hudson Valley Community Services, co-chair, Tri-County Steering Committee.
Maria Diaz, living together in Buffalo, Westchester, Tri-County. Lisa Best, Tri-County.
you notice all the Tri-County people are all in one little spot together, like a little posse.
Hi everyone, Carlos Rosario, local New York, your Bronx advocacy guy.
Tim Braswich, at the Center for Clinical Behavioral Studies, Columbia.
Alex Lukavich, Home Services.
Good afternoon, Kimberly Smith, Callan.
Hi, Zach Hennessy, White Heights Medical Center and Integration of Care Committee.
Hi, Lisa Zulli, God's Loving Delivery and IOC co-chair.
Daphne Hazel, Guardian Community Health Center, co-chair for Rules and Membership. Chair for the Rules and a member of PSRA.
Lee Barrett, Ryan Center, and a member of Needs Assessment.
Claire Simon, Lead Institute.
Jan Hudis, the Family Center member, PSRA.
Julie Lahane, Westchester County Department of Health.
Christine Nolan, Public Health Solutions.
Amber Casey, Grantee, New York City Department of Health.
John Shepp, consumer representative, police.
Sorry, Commissioner. The Fields co-chair of Consumer Committee and Rules and Membership.
Darrell Wong, Planning Council staff.
Joan Corbusiero, parliamentarian.
Also, I believe we have at least one person on the phone, if you can identify yourself.
Scott Sullivan, Rockland County Department of Health, and Tri-County member.
Great. Anybody else? Okay, thank you.
And I'm Jan Park, I'm the governmental co-chair for the council.
Considering all that's taken place in the LGBT community over the last 30 days and Jan's wonderful ability to sort of summarize the current events, I'd like to give him the opportunity to give a moment of silence.
This month has been very trying for many people. I think trying is an understatement, particularly the families of 49 people who were massacred in a safe space. They happen to be members of the LGBT community, Hispanic and Latino communities. And they were at a nightclub, places where many of us go. It could be this community center. It could be a house of worship. It could be a shopping mall. And they were ruthlessly killed. So this year's LGBTQI events, Sunday's Gay Pride Parade in New York City, many gay pride parades became marches. There were marches with banners that read, "Gays against guns," because our community has now been touched with that violence in such a public way. But everyone at this table knows that LGBTQI people have suffered in silence many times as a result of violence. Hate must be considered a public health emergency. we are now in that place where we as a body have to view gun violence and hate as a public health issue and how it impacts the people that we work with every day. So 35 years into the epidemic, 35 million people have died. Many of the people in that club, I would think some of the people in that club were HIV positive. Gay and straight, senseless. So as we reflect on our work and the confluence of violence and hatred and homophobia and AIDS phobia and sexism and racism and all the other maladies of this society and other societies that are inflicted upon us. Those clients that come in your door every day, people with HIV, are carrying the weight of that history with them. That's why this council dedicated itself to changing its service directives to reflect trauma-informed care. And this is an example of trauma, of collective community trauma. So let's take a moment to remember those unfortunate people that happen to be in a safe space on a Saturday night who lost their lives, along with all those that we work with and struggle with every day to maintain a healthy physical and mental life living with HIV, and those who have passed, many of whom in the 80s in this country died as a result of violence. They died as a result of a government indifferent to them and their HIV status. So let's take a moment to reflect on those thoughts. Thank you.
So, is there one? So for public comment, thank you, Jen. Ron Joyner?
Yeah. What I said. Okay. Robbie has a wireless mic.
Okay, yes, my name is Ron, I'm from Brooklyn, and I'm very happy to know that we got this 2014 EMA satisfaction response. And I want to talk about that very briefly, because if you look at page 2, when you get there anyway, you'll find only 49% responded to this survey. Now, and in 2 years prior, only 30% responded. So I ask you, how can you use a document that has less than majority of the people responding to a survey? I mean, and now you want to use this survey to enact certain policies or extend certain service categories? That's a problem. I find it very much of a problem. I can't see accepting less than 50% of anything being worthwhile. Although you may say, okay, it's consumer responsibility to fulfill those things out. But over the years, and I'm talking about for the last 10 years, we seldom reach 50% of respondents. So therefore, the mechanism we're using to do these surveys are woefully inadequate. I also want to talk about the ETE blueprint when it comes down to in the epidemic. It seems like every initiative that involves this in the epidemic involves, what should I say, networking. Networking is constantly brought up into the blueprint. Well, what happened a few years ago? The AIDS Institute defunded networks. So now we're trying to figure out how we're going to network and get this information out to the public and make it very cohesive of efforts in ending this epidemic. It seems like we just keep going back and forth over the same things year after year. There's one more point I want to make too with another issue. Ralph Molino worked for the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. He's been gone for almost a year now. No one has replaced him. You can get a classified clearance in the military in less time than that. So I'm asking you, what's going on here? You have a survey that has less than 50% response. You have a blueprint for the end of the epidemic and asking for networking. And we don't have network. The only network we have is in Manhattan, and that's due to one individual who really made the effort to see that the network existed in Manhattan. But all the other boroughs, they don't have a network. And finally, I want to talk to the consumers on this planning council here. You have a responsibility, not just to the planning process, but to yourselves and to other consumers. I go to the consumer committee meeting on a regular basis. I only see just a few people here on this planning council at the consumer committee. Why you're not there, I don't know. But if you're there, you can share information, you can gather information from other consumers, so you can present to whatever committee you're on. And that's how it should work. Consumers are on the planning council for a reason. Maybe you need to reevaluate why you're on the planning council and see if you have a misunderstanding as to why you're planning council members and you're a consumer. But as I started out, I want you to scrutinize this document that you're going to be presented today and look at the inadequacies of it. Because I'm looking at something like this 72% of clients out of 49 total respondents, 72% of those 49, 72% of those clients have a very satisfactory quote.
Ron,
service.
I normally limit public comment to 2 minutes. I just want to politely ask you just to sort of summarize your thoughts, please.
Well, you just took 10 seconds. Okay, the point I'm trying to make is something is terribly wrong here when a staff member has been gone for more than a year, he's not been replaced. There's another problem when you have a survey that produces less than 50% of respondents. There's another problem when you're asking for a networking and you don't have a network in the barrels. And consumer responsibility to the planning council and other consumers. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. David, I believe we're on to review and approval of the minutes.
Yes. They were sent out earlier this week. Hopefully everyone had a chance to review them. Didn't get any corrections, changes. Any changes, corrections? If not, minutes stand as presented.
Saul, do you want to say something? Good afternoon. I just want to share that June 1st, in a neighborhood I have, lived in and have friends, Jackson Heights, I was attacked and has become a victim of hate crime. I was stabbed, and it's been a month, actually. And it's true. Hate is out there. Even in the places you think you're very safe. Like people of false. I will get over it. I will move forward. But it's real. And I just don't want to make this sad, but we need to really keep our support and say we won't stand for this no more. I thank you for allowing me to state is still difficult to say to myself, I'm a victim. I don't want to think of myself as a victim. But I will be here. I will continue doing my work because I believe in it, because I believe in myself, because it's the kind of work I want to do. Thank you, guys.
I'm sure you'll find there are several people at this table who've been victims of violence at some point, including myself. So I know it takes a while to get over something like that. So, priority setting and resource allocation. We have quorum, so we can begin that process. Should we go through the materials first? Daryl?
So after our agenda and our minutes, we've got the two spending plans to be reviewed and considered for approval for both the city and the Tri-County region, followed by the presentation by Kate Penrose at 4 p.m. on the client satisfaction survey from 2014. There's an update on current topics in HIV law and policy, followed by a press release from the governor announcing all HIV positive individuals in New York City becoming eligible for housing, transportation, and nutritional support. There is a document that summarizes the community briefing recommendations, which were accepted, approved on June 16th of this month. Finally, a nomination form for finance officer, which will take place, the election of the finance officer will take place at next month's meeting. So we're asking for any nominations to be sent to David Klotz or to be emailed. You can nominate yourself.
And folks, so if for any reason I was ever not able to chair this meeting, it would be the finance officer whose responsibility would be in addition to also managing this process with Jan. So it's important that someone from this group really think about stepping up to the plate to sort of play in that role, and of course running the finance committee meeting, which plays an important role in making sure that the EMA is meeting its spending targets. Thank you.
So nominations for that position are due on August 3rd, on Wednesday. The election will be by secret ballot. The last documents in the packet are a grid of planning council member attendance. Those are documents appear only for those who are seated at the table as members of the planning council. Then an article that was written by Dr. Maybank, who heads the Center for Health Equity at the Department of Health, and Dr. Daskalakis, naming, as it says here, recounting the pulse incident and the infectious agent of hate. And followed by our July and August calendar, there are some meeting locations that are still being discussed, but we wanted to give you the benefit of being able to fill up your schedules. Please note that the final planning council meeting of this cycle will take place on Thursday, August 4th. That is due to the number of IOC meetings that are being held in July to complete their work. And that's it. August 4th.
So, Ms. Duke, it's so good to see you here. So I believe your committee is next, and there are going to be 2 votes required here. As I think most people know, this EMA has experienced a reduction in our award. On the formula side, we got scored really well on the supplemental, but that does not, unfortunately, did not offset the fact that the epidemic is changing and shifting throughout the country, and hold harmless is a thing of the past. And so now we are coming to you, to this body, with a proposal for how to address the change in our award coming up. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you, Matt. So I'd like to ask everyone to please take out the 11 by 17 paper. It's very colorful, and at the top it says draft 2016 final spending plan approved by PSRA on June 6th. So there's a few different stories that this spreadsheet tells you, and I'm gonna walk you through them and explain the PSRA committee's rationale behind them, and then we'll open it up for discussion, okay? So let me walk you through first. So I want to start by saying that the PSRA over this past year has really worked diligently to look at every single service category and create a methodology for analyzing the category where we look at, try to look at apples to apples, category to category. So we look at services rendered, we look at the amount of funding provided, we look at the rate of spending by the grantees in the category. We looked at unduplicated numbers of people served. We looked at external trends that were happening within the community, within the environment, within payors, and all of that to help us understand the impact that we were having through our service array, and then to help guide us in maintaining an appropriate recommended set of priorities for service delivery by brown and white funding in New York City. So given all of that, the first thing I want to draw your attention to is column G. And if you go down to lines 29 and 30, you will see that under integrated harm reduction, recovery readiness and relapse prevention, and mental health services, there are reductions. 190,000 from integrated harm reduction and 109,000 from mental health, totaling about $300,000 in targeted cuts to those two categories. Now, those targeted cuts were made in collaboration with the New York City Health Department and Public Health Solutions, and they were based on those two categories being re-RFP'd and what the grantee calls right size, which means that the funding was reduced based on the services delivered and based on the allocation of resources through the new RFP. So this was a targeted reduction based on performance that both PHS and DOH felt were necessary. Given that we were reducing those two categories by the $300,000, PSRA voted at the time to say, should there be an additional cut to our award as a result of what HRSA does nationally, we would want to hold harmless the mental health and the harm reduction programs because they've already taken a hit. So if you go all the way across, you will see that there's a 0 on the percent cut in both of those categories. Is everybody with me?
I just want to add that those targeted reductions were actually approved for the application spending plan last summer, and then again in the scenario plan over the winter. So that's not new.
Right, but I want everybody to just be reminded of it because it's here. So then, what happened was we as an EMA did receive a $1.3 million reduction in our 2016 award, and which translates into a $1.15 million reduction for New York City programs, because Tri-County took a proportionate share of the $1.3 million cut. So what PSRA did, based on our extensive review of all of the service categories, is we made a recommendation to eliminate home and community-based services. Now that was based on a full review of all of the service categories, and it was also based on the fact that home and community-based health services had not been rebid since 1997, that is 19 years. It was originally intended to provide skilled nursing within the home. And as treatments have advanced and people have been living longer and been able to be much more active in the community, the need for home-based care has really diminished significantly. The allocation for home and community-based services has been being reduced every year. The number of clients is also shrinking, and the programs have underperformed. So collectively, we felt that we could justify the defunding of this category, particularly since there are other service categories within our portfolio that would be able to serve this population who needed services in the home. There are food and nutrition, medical case management, supportive counseling are allowed to occur within people's homes. So that was the recommendation by the PSRA. Now,
And Sharon, if I may, so Village Care, we had this contract, and I approached our team about what the service is funding. And in every case, this is an add-on service, so it's not like without this service, that person's not getting home care. They're just getting some supplemental services, but there's already existing funding for home care. And this is, so I don't want anybody to think that by defunding this, people are going to go without home care services. That's not the case. Just the level of service may change a bit, but they're still going to get that in-home service delivered that they need.
thank you. So, okay, so whenever you make a recommendation to eliminate or end funding of a service, one, you have to ensure that you are going to pay for services already rendered, and two, you have to provide transitional funding at least 3 months so that the programs can notify the clients and can make plans to ensure that those individuals get the services that they need. So in terms of the timing of this, there will be 3 months of payment to the home care agencies, home and community-based service agencies who are funded, plus 3 additional months of funding for this transition. So that's essentially 6 months of funding will remain in order to ensure a smooth and effective and responsible transition. And 6 months of funding will be eliminated. Now, so that dollar amount, and if you look under column I, that equals $572,000, $572,325. And if you multiply that by 2, you get the 1.14 million. So what we did was we reduced the cut to the EMA by that 572, and then the bulk of the difference we took out of ADAP as an upfront cost, an upfront cut to the ADAP program. And we met with Christine Rivera from the State Health Department, who said that that would be fine, and if there were available resources at the end of our year, rather than carryover, we would replenish the ADAP that we are using.
So after the targeted reductions to mental health and harm reduction, and then the almost $600,000 in home care, that leaves about $250,000, about $247,000 left to make up the deficit caused by the cut in the award. So that's the reduction to the upfront cut to ADAP with the promise of restoring that. And that's a fairly small amount, and we generally have a lot more understanding of that every year. So.
Thank you, David. We see this as a team effort. So the last piece of information that I want to bring your attention to is if you look at lines 19 and 20, well actually 18, 19, 20, and 21, what we are doing, and this was really based on a request from ADAP, is we're eliminating ADAP Plus. And we're taking 100% of the resources from ADAP Plus and putting it into ADAP through the base grant and ADAP through MAI grant. So there is no, so net, it's a zero impact. The reason for the change is that ADAP Plus, because it's the delivery of medical services, medical clinical services, has a lot of reporting requirements that are very cumbersome. to our EMA, to ADAP, to the health department. And whereas the reporting on ADAP and the distribution of resources for medications and for premiums is much more straightforward and much less cumbersome for reporting purposes. So in response to the request by ADAP, we felt comfortable honoring and approving their request. And again, dollar for dollar, we're still keeping the money in ADAP. We're moving it out of ADAP Plus and moving it into ADAP. So that's why you see dollar for dollar, there's a negative and a positive.
And it's actually, if you look at the numbers, you'll see it's dollar for dollar minus the $247,000 that to
That
make
is
up
the
the rest of the
upfront.
reduction in the
So the point of these targeted reductions in these different areas enabled us to create a methodology for absorbing the cut to the EMA without doing across-the-board cuts. Across-the-board cuts means regardless of how you're performing, regardless of the value of, or the impact of the work, everybody gets cut proportionally. What PSRA recommended doing is saying, we're not going to just do across-the-board cuts, we're going to do some targeted reductions so that we can maintain service delivery as to the highest degree being unaffected by the cut. And so that's why we said, let's eliminate the home and community-based service category. And it's having a half a year impact in this year because of the 6 months of both services rendered and services for the transition. And then the remainder as an upfront cut to ADAP. And that's how we were able to achieve the zeros all the way down, impacting all the other service categories.
I just want to point out one other thing on the spending plan. In column I, you'll see that service categories that receive both base and MAI funding, like housing, medical case management, and EIS, early intervention, you'll see that there's a dollar-for-dollar swap between base and MAI because we get our grant in 2 different parts, base and MAI, and we have to report them separately, separate. But when we as a council and PSRA committee considers the spending plan as a whole, we consider it as one unified spending plan. So those adjustments adjust to balance out the base and MAI amounts, but it doesn't change how much is going to the actual programs.
Thank you, David. So it is dollar for dollar, it's a wash. And it's actually very valuable for us to be able to understand the services across the entire portfolio, because the distinction of what is MAI and what is base is really more a administrative distinction, but it is not a distinction to the people who are receiving the services and the organizations that are providing them. So it's advantageous for us to understand the service delivered as a total package.
So, coming from your committee, you are allowed to make the motion from your committee for this. Would you like to do that, ma'am?
Yes, sir. So I would like to move on behalf of the PSRA committee that the Planning Council consider and adopt this spending plan as presented.
Is there a second?
I'd like to second it.
Thank you, sir. Is there any questions on? Yeah. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'd like to ask if you could say something more about the criteria or the metrics that were utilized to determine that these 2 categories in lines 29 and 30 were the places that should take these cuts. And the reason I ask that is that I just by chance this morning had a conversation with a gentleman who was a retired caseworker, and he explained to me in quite graphic detail how the pressure that he felt in a service situation very close to what we're talking about today the relentless pressure to make his numbers, and that it did not reflect whether he was doing a good job or not. I thought that was a very interesting observation, which I've also heard at the Immigration Care Committee, about how sometimes providing a good service requires so much effort that it's not really reflected if you're adding up the totals of how many services were delivered and basing it on numbers. I'm sure that's not what happened, but I would like to know a little bit more about why here and what criteria were utilized to make that determination.
I just want to clarify for you that the PSRA committee does not have authority to do sort of contract management or contract specific work or analysis. So our job really is to look at it more broadly. The recommendations for these cuts came to the PSRA committee from the New York City Health Department and from PHS, and were based on a variety of performance metrics that perhaps somebody from PHS or Health Department can speak to better than I can. But also, and I do want to disclose, my agency is a harm reduction agency, and we did receive the harm reduction grant. It was re-solicited, and in the resolicitation and the new awards, there were reductions in some of those awards. And so the category itself was decreased based on the new awards, and then I believe a similar methodology was used for mental health.
So I think this would be a good time for the grantee to chime in, because it's an important question.
Yeah, happy to. So we take two things into consideration when we're looking at making a recommendation for reductions to a service category. One is sort of system level indicators that might indicate an increased capacity in under other payers, so payer of last resort. And for mental health, the expansion of Medicaid, and in particular for us in our service system, a move towards certifying all of our providers to bill Medicaid. So in the past, we had providers who were providing mental health services to all people, including people with Medicaid, and billing to Ryan White. And so by going through the multi-year process with all of our providers and providing support along the way, we were able to get more and more of our providers able to bill Medicaid for those services. So we were able to increase the number of providers in this Medicaid system who had competency serving HIV. So that was sort of the one big, in mental health, that's sort of the big elephant in the room, right? This is Medicaid and it's spending.
Right, and I presume expansion into HARPs for the plans, and so you just have a larger payment mechanism for mental health.
Correct. So there's that. So that was a big decision under mental health. And then during that time, our utilization of mental health within the Ryan White system started to decline as more providers became able to bill Medicaid. So there wasn't suddenly an influx of clients, for example, who needed Ryan White services, but in fact the clients who had been receiving Ryan White services were moved to Medicaid. And then with harm reduction, was sort of with the new RFP, in anticipation of those awards and knowing that our award was going to continue to go down, and that HARPs and behavioral health and substance use paying for harm reduction services with Medicaid dollars is a possibility. Unfortunately, the application is currently stalled, but it's probably a matter of time. That sort of decision was made, and again, utilization, the harm reduction, not the great decrease that we see in mental health, but we have seen decrease over time. The other thing is during a re-RFP, that is the best time to consider whether or not to make reductions to a service category, because it doesn't affect existing services and existing providers in the same way, because it's sort of a new point in time, and so it's less disruptive to the system to sort of do that all at the same time. And that was sort of one of the reasons that we did in-depth analyses of those two service categories and spending trends, and made the reduction that the service system could probably handle this level of reduction, knowing that we're going to continue to get reductions in our award. Does that answer your question?
Yes, except I've never heard of HARPs.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's the
Health and Recovery Relapse Prevention. So all the Medicaid managed care plans have been encouraged by the state health department to create sort of an entire network of services for people who need mental health and substance abuse services, tied in with mental health parity that passed a few years ago. The Medicaid plans are being very much encouraged and required to provide a much greater level of mental health and recovery relapse prevention services than they were in the past.
And it will come with other in-depth services. For example, folks who are enrolled in HARPS will be allowed to access unlimited tobacco cessation prescriptions, for example. Things like that are known to be special needs within that population.
Given that this is one of I believe probably one of the more important decisions that we will be making regularly, any material that you could share with the council, I'd be very interested in knowing more details about how these determinations are made, understanding that there are probably some things that would not be appropriate to disseminate publicly.
And we share them with PSRA. I think that would be my recommendation. If that's a topic you're interested in, we go very in depth in PSRA and how our methodology would be.
Obviously, this body has the final decision over these kinds of changes, but it is in PSRA where they go into the weeds. And I will use as a pitch to remind every council member that PSRA is the one committee where any council member can appear, and we encourage council members to participate in PSRA. So we still have a motion on the floor. Yes?
First of all, thank you to the committee for doing so much work. It's actually, thank you, I feel like this is one of the better explanations. But I do have one, I'm still not understanding the ADAP recommendation. Could it be described as like a consolidation of ADAP and ADAP Plus? And so the services are not going to change. How will DOH not have to comply with whatever burdens and requirements?
Okay, I got you. Okay, so the rationale, I'm going to read this to you, is that ADAP Plus requires reporting on clinical measures on HRSA's Ryan White Services Report, the RSR. But ADAP Plus only provides reimbursement and not clinical. ADAP only provides reimbursement, not clinical care. So by shifting the Part A allocation for the state's uninsured care pools into ADAP, the state can move some Part B or state funds into ADAP Plus, and therefore they'll eliminate the need for the owner's reporting.
And if we spend the money on ADAP, then we have to report the data.
But it's not like we're eliminating ADAP Plus.
No. Our contributions.
No, the state is covering it in another way, and they're just alleviating the administrative burden to us, because it represents a very small amount of money, and then it has a very large reporting obligation. So we basically said to the state, you do all your reporting, and you cover it that way, and we'll just move this an equal amount into ADAP, so that we're keeping the net amount contribution to ADAP the same, but the distribution, we're letting the state cover the ADAP Plus.
Yeah, we contribute an amount to the HIV uninsured care pools, which is the state program that includes ADAP, which is medication reimbursement, filling prescriptions, basically. ADAP Plus, which is basically just reimbursing for primary care, the insurance continuation program, etc. So
there's no change in allocation for service level.
The overall amount to the HIV uninsured care pool stays the same, but it's allocated directly to ADAP and ADAP Plus. And the reporting burden was on the state, because by taking Part A money for ADAP Plus, which is categorized by HRSA as outpatient medical care, they were required to report clinical data, but they don't provide clinical services. They just pay for people's clinical care. So they don't provide care themselves.
So assuming everybody's okay, we still have a motion. Are there any other questions on the motion before we do a roll call vote? Okay, we always do a roll call vote. Okay, go be the parliamentarian here. Okay, so all those in favor of the motion? Is anyone Opposed or abstaining? Motion carries. Thank you, folks. Next one.
I just want to also say, first I want to say thank you, and on behalf of the, I also just want to say that the PSRA has begun the priority setting process, and we've got a meeting coming up in July. If you're interested, please join us, and we'll be making a full report of it.
At the next meeting, you'll get 2 more spending plans, 3 more spending plans actually. You'll get an application spending plan, which is our request for HRSA, and it'll come in 2 parts, separate base and MAI. And then it'll also be a Tri-County spending plan for the application for 2017. Tri-County is all base money.
So who is leading the discussion on Tri-County?
Over here.
Okay. All yours.
This one's less simple.
Very simple. You can focus on column E11. As reported a few moments ago, the EMA lost $1.3 million in funding for the 2016 Part A award, keeping the Tri-County percentage the same at 4.71%. This means a reduction in the fund for the Tri-County program by $56,945. The medical transportation category is going to absorb the amount, the entire amount you get reimbursed at the end of the year based on unspent funds. This would mitigate the need for any cuts for the rest of the Tri-County steering committee programs, and be at flat funding for the Tri-County steering committee. On behalf of the Tri-County, I move that we accept the Tri-County fiscal year 2016 spending plan as presented.
Thank you. Second to that motion. Thank you. Any questions on the motion? Okay, then I'll call it. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? I assume that wasn't an opposed, right, Daphne? No, okay. So, thank you.
Next item on the agenda is a report from the Grantee. Amber?
Hi, so you'll notice in your packets, we do not have a written report this month. Because our update is we are currently applying for a grant to implement an intervention to treat people who are co-infected with HIV and HCV, who are people of color in the jurisdiction. And so I'm actually the lead on that, and so I am unfortunately doing that, did not get a chance to do a Grantee report. Sorry. But actually things are pretty status. You know, everything you see coming from the committees is the work we've been doing with the council, and all of the contracts are in place, and some things are just sort of, other than writing grants, pretty okay. So hopefully we'll have a full report for you next month. Sorry.
Thank you, Amber. Okay, we're moving into the main presentation of the day, which is a report out on our client satisfaction. And I'm inviting my colleague, Kate Penrose, to join us. Kate has been working with us for a number of years and providing a lot of support for many of the committees that you all participate in. But this report is about the people that we serve. And you will see in the presentation, she'll explain the methodology. She will explain how the survey operates and how people responded to it and what's the big take-home message. There are attachments to the presentation itself, so it's not, she will be referring to some of those slides, but it's there for your information. So Kate, you want to go ahead?
Thanks, Jen. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to, again, I think we're planning to do this at some point in the future, but I just wanted to have you all keep in mind as I go through this that we want the client satisfaction survey to be useful, and so it would be helpful if you all could think about how it could be used to inform improving services, what we could do better in terms of trying to get feedback from clients, and just if there are other ways to reach out to people, again, across our portfolio. So. Just to back up a little bit in terms of why we do this. One being that we actually think, without clients we have no services. So we want to know what they think about the services they're getting. And we want to be able to do that in a standardized way so that we can look at and compare client experience across programs and agencies and service types. And most importantly, we want to know what are the barriers to services and what are the things that are helping people get those services. The goal being to try and provide the best minor services that we can. So satisfaction is a tricky thing to try and measure, and this survey focused on a number of different areas. One being the hole on the bottom, accessibility. So how easy it for people to get to the services that they're getting in terms of hours and transportation. Appropriateness. When they get there, are the people that speak the language that's comfortable for them? Do they feel respected? Do they feel like it's a good fit in terms of the types of services that they need? Also, the patient-provider relationship. Do they trust their providers? Feel like they have the providers listening to them and understands their needs? And also in terms of what they think about what are they getting out of the services? What are the benefits? So the 2014 survey was revised based on the 2012 pilot survey. Many of you were instrumental in the development of the pilot and also the revision of the second round. A number of things were tweaked to try and make the survey a better fit for clients. So one way we did that was the survey was an electronic survey available via a website link. There was also paper, but limited. So ideally clients could take their survey ID card and could take that card and go anywhere there was internet. We gave agencies tablets, but if clients wanted to take it on their phone or at home with the library, they could also do that. For clients who had either language issues or visibility issues or literacy issues, we also made available audio assistants that would read the questions to clients as they went through the survey. We added French, so the survey is available in English, Spanish, French, and we tried to limit asking clients to fill out the survey to just once. So even if a client was enrolled in multiple service categories, we asked them specifically about just one of those service categories, recognizing that a lot of people told us often about the full realm of services that they were getting. That's fine, and we acknowledge that. But again, we're trying to reduce the burden on clients, not ask them a million times for surveys. 2014, we also added some additional service categories in New York City and a number of different service types in Tri-County. So it's a bigger group of people. This is what our survey ID card looks like. So 14,000 of these were prepared, all perforated by hand by our staff on the weekend, and then went out to agencies. What was supposed to happen was, so the name of the client's on the left, they ripped that up, gave the client the card on the right, which doesn't have anything about HIV on it, doesn't have their name, the agency. So again, it was supposed to be the client dropped it or lost it. It wasn't a big deal. It was supposed to be very confidential. So they could click on that link, enter their survey ID, and take the survey online. So just to look a little bit at the difference between the pilot and the 2014 survey. So you can see if we estimate about 20,000 people are receiving Ryan McCarty services in New York. In 2012, we surveyed, so we got responses back from a little over 2,000. The response rate was about 30%. In 2014, that almost doubled, so we got responses back from almost 4,200 clients and a response rate of 49%. I know the response rate doesn't seem that high, and we acknowledge that we can't, serve clients who left agencies because they didn't like services, we're not reaching those folks. Survey response rates traditionally are pretty low, so if you get about 25%, usually people are pretty excited. But again, we recognize that we didn't reach a certain percentage of people, and that's just one of those things about surveys. So just to break down the numbers in terms of who we actually surveyed, so the New York City representative, over 80% of our survey respondents. So 3,600 came from New York City. Care coordination represented the biggest chunk of that. We had over 500 responses in Tri-County, and medical case management, which is sort of the counterpart to care coordination, represented the biggest chunk of that. The one thing that we did test for and we're happy to see was that the clients who took the survey looked very similar to the clients and agencies in terms of the mix. So we had about the proportion of women that we see at a particular agency, about the same proportion of people, Hispanics, about the same number. So we checked to see if people look similar who took the survey to people receiving services overall. Most people took the survey online, which we were very happy about and probably continue doing going forward. One of the reasons being is that the data we got was a lot more complete. So we compared those who took the paper survey and those who took the electronic. And those who took the electronic were missing fewer responses. And they also provided more comments, which we were very happy to see. So 75% of clients who used the electronic survey provided some sort of comments, which is great. So another item just to keep in mind, we looked to see of the clients who took the survey, how long had they been receiving services of the various agencies. So the green is the largest group, and that's people receiving services for more than 2 years. So that's the largest in both New York City and Tri-County, followed by the gray chunk, which is 1 to 2 years. So a lot of the clients who took the survey were longer term clients, which again is something to keep in mind in terms of how that might affect what we were seeing in terms of satisfaction. It's also the reality that a lot of the clients we serve are also longer term clients. So we weren't too surprised. Sorry. Oops. So there were 4 different questions on the survey which people could enter any comments that they wanted to enter. We took all of those comments, combined them, and then our staff went through and then defined key thematic areas that were coming out just so we could try and get some of the patterns in what people were saying. So you can see that, for example, the largest number of comments related to relationship with staff. So 33% of the people who had any sort of comment said something about staff. And I'll go a little bit more in depth into what sorts of things people said. Whereas, for example, only 3% of people had some comment about privacy or confidentiality. Some people also had comments that were just like, it's great, it's fine. And we sort of noted those, but you don't see them here. One thing that we thought was worth noting, though, was that for people who had comments, so 38% had suggestions for improvement. And there was a relationship between what people told us in terms of the types of comments they were giving. So if they had suggestions for improvement, they were also less likely to tell us they were very satisfied. So one of the first questions on the survey is, when receiving these services, how satisfied are you overall? So you can see the scales, what it looks like on the survey with check boxes. So 69% of people told us they were very satisfied. To give you sort of a rounder picture of what that looks like, pulled just a couple of client quotes, and recognizing these are small, so I think I'm happy to send these out if you don't already have them. But just to give you a sense, so one of the clients who said they were very satisfied said, I'm very happy with what they've done for me. I've been to other places and I've never stayed this long. I found something good here. I found help. So someone that seemed like they were in a good place, happy with what they were getting. If you look at the next category, so about 23% of clients told us they were mostly satisfied. And these clients often were happy but had a couple of things that they wanted changed. So for example, one person said, have a wider variety of food. It's a very helpful program. And then 8% of clients told us that they were somewhat satisfied, somewhat dissatisfied, mostly dissatisfied, or very dissatisfied. And these were clients who either had more serious concerns or just didn't feel like the program was meeting their needs. So one client said, take more time, speak in a way that I understand, and show some interest and most of all, some compassion. The provider is always rushing through the examinations, providing little to no answers. So someone who didn't really feel connected to their provider. We looked, I guess, across different program types just to see what that looked like. And there is variation. So, for example, 75% of legal clients said they were very satisfied versus 58% of food and nutrition clients. We recognize there could be a variety of reasons for that. And there was also variation across agencies in terms of all of these things. And again, I think we're working with our technical assistance program and also the providers to try and figure out exactly which pieces of these we can actually take in and do something with. So in Tri-County, again, just to look, some of these categories were small, so you don't see them here, but for those that had enough responses, there's less variation than in New York City, but even so, food bank home delivered meals, and 78% said they were very satisfied versus 61% for non-medical. Andy, do you have a question?
Lisa?
Or should we wait?
What would you
Should I wait
prefer
to
to
the
do?
end?
If it's something that's
No, I'll come back when the presentation is over.
And again, this is just looking at some of the most frequent areas that had comments, but also there were questions on the survey, checkbox questions that people responded to. So one question was, is there anything that would make it easier for you to get these services? And the top three, so 43% of people said transportation, 11% said different times of services, and 10% said shorter wait. At the same time, people also told us 80% said the agency location was convenient, 97% said services were offered at good times for them, and 77% waited less than 30 minutes. So those seemed like they were conflicting results a bit, but at the same time, we recognize that, for example, a lot of agencies already give out Metro cards or other forms of transportation, so partly it might have been that people just didn't want whatever services they were already getting to be taken away, so they felt like they needed those things. Convenience issues did come up a lot in the comments as well, so it was the most frequently cited area for improvement. So 381 clients mentioned something about convenience, and 91% had some sort of suggestion for improvement. Again, the largest percent related to Metro cards or transportation. We also looked at other needs, recognizing that some people mentioned needs that went beyond the scope of providing white services, but just to see what other types of things people told us they could use, recognizing that some of these things could be incentives for getting people into services or barriers for reason they would drop out. So basic needs were up there pretty high. So housing and food were the top two items mentioned, followed by social support, so information, education, and social activities. So one person said there's too much educational stuff. First get me a place to live and some food before you start trying to teach me about the medical stuff. That can wait a few months. On the client-provider relationship side, there were a number of questions that people had to rank whether they, from strongly disagree to strongly agree, which ones they agreed with. So for example, I feel comfortable asking my providers questions. The largest proportion of clients strongly agreed with that question. You can see that for all of them, the mean is somewhere between agree and strongly agree. So in general, people had pretty positive responses to the questions about client-provider relationship. We saw this on the pilot too, so those that were the lowest were feeling comfortable talking about personal information and discussing sexual health. And again, if you look at the comments that people wrote, more than 1,000 clients had comments about staff, and 80% of those comments were positive. And some of the things that people talked about were caring about me, providers being nice or kind, there for me when needed, or attentive and understanding my needs. And for clients who had suggestions for improvement in this area, it was often the flip side of that. So providers don't understand my needs, they don't respect me was one that came up, and also just don't care. But again, it's a minority of comments. We also looked a little bit at outcomes. So 59% of clients told us that they strongly agreed that services made them better able to manage their health. And of the more than 500 clients who commented about outcomes, 95% had something positive to say, often related to services benefiting their health, mental health, immigration status, educational components, changing my life, things along those lines. So we saw a number of things across the board. So just as a summary, again, we saw high levels of overall satisfaction, though there were variations between program types. Convenience and logistics came up most often as an area people felt needed improvement. People also mentioned a number of unmet needs. And clients had a number of comments about staff, mostly positive, and also just in terms of the benefits of the services that they were receiving. Recognizing some of the drawbacks of this survey, so we had a high proportion of longer-term clients who are longer-term and therefore might still be there because they're really happy with the services that they're getting. So that's something to keep in mind. And also just, we're going to probably keep using the electronic tool, though again, we are very grateful for providers who often walk people through the surveys using a tablet or other mechanisms for people who are less comfortable with computers. And just some of the things that we've done with these findings so far, and again, if you have suggestions, I'd love to hear them. So the quantitative results went back to agencies last spring in 2015. We gave them both their own agency-specific findings and also findings related to their program type. So if you're a care coordination agency, you got the averages overall and your specific agency. This spring, we gave them just the cross-agency reports by program type. Again, this is to protect client confidentiality, so we didn't want to send individual comments back to agencies. And there's a lot of work going on between our technical assistants and our program officers in the agencies in terms of are there particular areas that individual agencies and programs can improve on, or is there something that's more systemic that we need to look at more broadly. We're still doing analyses on this, and again, I think measuring client satisfaction is not going to go away, and I think we could definitely improve on how we were doing it. But you'll all be asked for future rounds in terms of how to do it better and what to do with what we already have. So, and this is just a quote from one of the clients that I wanted to finish with, just because I thought it summed up both the reasons people come in for services, the things they get out of them, sort of benefits that the services provide. So this person said, "I love that I have someone to talk to about my life, and that I get Metro cards and lunch for free. That means a lot to me because I don't have much money. I want to be in a place that cares about me, and even if I have no money, they can get me home. This is the best place I've ever been, and when I think about it, I'm glad that after being depressed for years and testing positive for HIV, and not having a family or friend to support me, I was able to come to a place where I matter and where I can talk about my problems." And this was a Herculean effort, so again, thanks to those of you who are involved with outreach and getting the survey off the ground, and to our clients who participated. That's all I've got. So, thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Other questions? Lisa?
Yeah, question we found it, there was a little activity going on here referring to the second page of the 2014 survey design. Tri-County was not part of that, we didn't come in on until the end of 2015. But when you gave the presentation at the consumer committee meeting, the templates are different than what we were giving at the consumer committee meeting.
The template for which part?
For the 2014 survey highlights. They're,
Yes,
they're
yeah,
not-
so thanks to your feedback, I changed a little bit to try and make it.
And I kind of, so, it was suggested that we kind of speak to that, but I can't speak to that because Tri-County didn't become a part of that till 2015. So that area that you were speaking to us about would have to come from a different place. But what I did want to refer to is the overall satisfaction New York City and the overall satisfaction Tri-County, which is about 4 pages in, I believe. There was mention, because there was some confusion in the service categories for New York City and the service categories for Tri-County, and it was explained, you did explain, but when I went home, I started, thinking, because in the room, when we have the explanation, it makes sense, but when we're bringing it back to people who weren't in the room for the explanation, it looks like we don't have the same common needs, interests, or conditions of needs. And I was wondering, the care coordination and transition care coordination and our medical case management and non-medical case management, would they be considered in the same realm? Or they're terms different, but the same kind of service?
Yeah, so they're included in the same, so first it considers them in the same service category. But again, we looked at the program types individually. For the purpose of this, we looked at the different, tried to separate them out. Because some agencies, for example, had just transitional care coordination, but not regular care coordination. So we were trying to get a sense of comparing like to like as much as possible.
I just want to clarify for the rest of the room, because it's probably kind of, I see the notation at the bottom, and I highlighted that the psychosocial support, the mental health, and the legal services, because the samples were so small. It does meet the explanation. It just was from a consumer's perspective, because we do discuss harm reduction. We do discuss a lot of different categories in our support groups and in other areas. So it was a little confusing from a consumer perspective why it seemed like our needs and what we considered important weren't in as much of a listed category as New York City. But then it had to be taken into consideration. We didn't come in until the end of 2015, and this is a 2014 survey model. So.
Also, in terms of what services are funded in Tri-County. So, for example, harm reduction isn't currently funded for Ryan White services in Tri-County.
So harm reduction is so each of these are versus service category types, except for care coordination and transitional care coordination, which, as she explained, are both medical case management models. So you guys don't fund what HRSA calls substance use treatment outpatient as a service category. Obviously, you guys could if you did a needs assessment and chose to add that to your portfolio, but I don't know the history of why it's not funded up there. It's not to say that harm reduction isn't a principle by which services are provided. It's just that it's not a service category that you guys fund on your allocation. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But yeah, I think where possible, we tried to cover all the different services, both in New York City and Tri-County, with some exceptions. So for example, we excluded testing with the idea that it wasn't really an appropriate place to ask people for a survey when they were finding out their test results, or short-term programs where, again, people were coming in and out. So Rikers, for example, we excluded just because the window was very short. But otherwise, we tried to include every service type that's funded in the various places.
Are there other questions? Okay, thank you so much for this. 4,000 people? That's a lot of people to survey. 79 different places that you went. It's a lot of work. Thank you so much. As far as the planning council chair's report, there are a couple of items in your packet that I'd like to call your attention to. The first is with regard to HIV law and policy, and Adrian Guzman, former council member and now a staff member of the Department of Health, put together these slides for you to look at. And majority of them talk about changes in HIV regulations and law that took place in this year's Assembly and Senate sessions. To me, the really good news here is the last slide, which talks about a change in policy with regard to HIV positive people receiving assistance through HASA. And I think the number is around 7,000 individuals for whom, for the longest time, had not been able to access HASA services. This is an issue that continues to get traction. The governor's acknowledgement of this in this action is encouraging. The council has, one of the recommendations that will be discussed in the needs assessment report is to assist people with housing challenges in the Tri-County region. There's no HASA in the Tri-County region. There's no HASA in Syracuse, or Buffalo, or Ithaca. And there are many people across the state that struggle with housing in a way that overwhelms them and affects their treatment and care. So the debate continues at the state level to expand this type of service statewide. But this is a success story. Local certainly should receive a lot of attention for their efforts in this, and it's happening. The other item in your packet I'd like to ask you to take a moment to reflect upon is something that I discussed at the beginning of the meeting. And this is about thinking about gun violence or thinking about violence in general as a public health issue and how that impacts people's lives, how that impacts their well-being, and how it impacts their health. So Dr. Daskalakis, along with Dr. Maybank, wrote this piece for HIV Plus magazine, as well as our commissioner, who has been so right in so many social issues in her tenure with the health department. And she has written about this in her blog. She was very, very moving in her observations about the massacres in Orlando. I do want to talk about staff vacancies. Ron, you raised this question. We do have two staff vacancies. One is Ralph Molina, and there's some people on the council here who remember him, who took a medical retirement. It was a very lengthy process to post this position, because Ralph was using up his leave time, he was using up sick time. He then went on medical disability and eventually medical retirement. All of that period of time, his staff line could not be filled. Even though he wasn't present in the office, it was still a staff line that was held open. Eventually, he took retirement, and that position, then we could post that position, and we have hired a person for that position, and we're awaiting his clearance. It's a 3 to 4 month, sometimes 5 month process to hire a person in city government, and it's discouraging a lot for a lot of managers, because many people just can't wait 6 months for a job to be filled, and they take other jobs.
For example, when I was hired by the mayor's office under Giuliani, fast track was 3 months. That was fast track. So imagine when it's like an agency, when in the mayor's office, moving quickly is 3 months.
The other vacancy is Nina Rothschild's vacancy. The position has been posted. We have reviewed dozens of resumes, and we are now going to be interviewing candidates within a matter of weeks. The last issue I want to discuss is the comprehensive strategic plan. As you know, we are working with the state and Nassau Suffolk County to create a consolidated plan that reflects the needs of this jurisdiction, this EMA, as well as others in the state. And they're well along the way of completing the first draft. It will be made. You will have the opportunity to comment on that draft. We have invited the consultant who is writing the plan to come and speak at the council. So we anticipate that to happen in August. So let's move on to the other committee reports. Carrie and Daniel.
Hi everyone. As you might remember, we had a committee forum early in the year, and we were focusing on 3 different issues at the developed structures that impact our clients: employment, housing, and hepatitis, the co-infection, hepatitis C, and HIV, and the access to new treatments. Since then, we review the transcripts from the committee forum, and we have lengthy discussions on that. We also have some presentations on these 3 issues, and as a result, you are going to see in your package that there is a series of recommendations based on the work that we did at the assessment committee. One of the recommendations is related to establishing a local pharmaceutical assistance program. You can see in your package there. There is also background information next to each recommendation that you can look at. The second recommendation had to do with the impact of housing, and Jan just mentioned the issue of housing in Tri-County. So this recommendation is specific to Tri-County, and it's the idea of increasing short-term rental assistance for that area. The third recommendation has to do with the issue of employment, and there were some discussions about the role of employment services and what we can do to address the financial hardship that many of our clients experience. And we wanted to build on some of the work that is being done piloted by the Department of Health, and so we want to add that in the different categories, that training regarding employment becomes a requirement. You can see it there. So these are 3 socioeconomic factors impacting the lives of our clients and obviously the health outcomes. We will continue working on those. At the same time, we started the work with other 2 issues. And the first step that we took was to request some information on that. One of the issues is immigration. So we want to learn more about immigrant health and our clients. And the second one has to do with the issue of incarceration and clients who have a history of incarceration. And we want to know the support systems available and the outcomes on these subgroups. So that work is going to continue in the fall, and we will hopefully organize another community forum to address some of these macro factors, and to have to have input from the community and take that input into recommendations. So, Carrie, you want to add anything?
No, that's what we did last month.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. These are very tangible outcomes from a community briefing that we held. And it's moving through its process. It's moving into the integration of care committee, into the priority setting committee to be addressed. Carlos?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just have a quick question about the community forums. Are they going to be in New York City and in Westchester?
Actually, it's an idea that we have to disseminate the information in the community. The community forum was, there was some money, there was some funding available to do that. Hopefully we can build that into our budget. If not, there are other ways in which we can request maybe donation for a place or something like that, or maybe smaller groups. But there is also dissemination of information in other ways. There are panel presentations. We want to make sure that some of the data that came out of the community forum and some of the data that we are already obtaining from the Department of Health regarding immigration and incarceration can be distributed widely. So hopefully yes. So the answer is hopefully yes. We can make this a regular thing. But I want to say that the community briefing of the forum was just one piece of many strategies. One strategy among many to disseminate information to the public.
Thank you. I just want to say that once we start expanding our work out there, I can definitely support in locating spaces and getting resources for food or anything. I think it's important to have a physical presence in the tri-state county areas.
Thank you. Other questions for Daniel McCary? All right, integration of care. Lisa?
Yep, hi, good afternoon, everybody. So we met last week or so, and we were following up on what the needs assessment committee recommended, the 3 recommendations. For 2 of them, we were kind of quick fixes that we worked on. For HIV and homeless in Tri-County, we sent that to the Tri-County Steering Committee for them to work on further. And for the financial counseling and peer certification, employment and educational services, we felt we spoke about this, discussed, and we felt that we did not have to make an amendment to the service directive. Rather, they are allowable in some categories, and we recommended that the grantee send a memo to those providers calling out those services specifically. And the last recommendation was the creation of LPAP, or Local Pharmacy Assistance Program. And this is a quite detailed, in-depth, we're going to look at this in detail. It's very complicated, so we've decided that we are going to meet 3 times in July to take on this project. We may not need all that time, but we've allocated 3 meetings for July. Next Wednesday is the first meeting, and then 2 more dates in the month. So I don't know if I have anything else, David, that I missed from the meeting. Okay. Thank you.
Questions?
I actually want to clarify, the recommendation I think was actually for us to develop an implementation plan and share it with you guys, because we are doing so much around the employment, so you guys would have the full, you'll see the full breadth.
Thank you.
There's more than a memo.
All right, Billy, committee or Katrina?
Yeah. So we met on the 21st. We got some special TLC from Kate, who came and gave us the presentation up close and personal. Thank you for incorporating your feedback. I definitely think it helps make things a little clearer, so we appreciate that. Then we also got the needs assessment community briefing recommendations that were presented, and there was some conversation about that and some of the LPAP stuff. And then there was sort of a kind of informal discussion at the end on how we can recruit new consumers and get some new blood into the consumers committee for the coming year, since it seems to be like a consistent core group of folks doing the work, and we want to spread the love a little more. Did I forget anything, Billy?
No, I just want to add, we'd like to invite our fellow consumers that are here at the table of the council, as well as consumers who are in the audience, to our next meeting, which will be the 4th Tuesday of next month.
Thank you, Billy. Thank you, Katrina.
And it's here, right?
Yeah. Yes, it's here.
Daphne?
So this is July's month of working membership notice, that's July's report. So we met this past Tuesday to review applications. Applications came in, people applying to be a part of the planning council. We'll be interviewing some of those applicants next week, I think on the 7th, and making some decisions on the 12th. If you notice in your packet that there is another piece that was looking at in your packet, there was a record of attendance in your packet. And so the RMC committee has been reaching out to those members who are not in compliance, as with regard to the bylaws and the attendance policy, and to see if in fact some of those absences were excused absences or not, and then we'll be moving forward on taking some next steps. Anything else, students? Jan?
Any questions? All right, thank you. Matt?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Kim Watson. So I just want to address about the absences and the fellow individuals that reach out. When you reach out to me especially, I don't know, for those who don't know, I am the founder, vice president and owner of Seek Your Life, which runs the only medical center here for transgender individuals in New York City. Okay, one of the things that I've tried to do, if I can't meet a meeting and the absences that I've had, there are variations of when sickness comes a liability. So if a person is not reaching out to you, asking you about your sickness, and when we approach these said meetings and we come to these meetings, most of us are not in contact to the non-meetings. So I think, how can we find a way within our committees to actually be much more intimate to find out how a person is feeling, what a person is going through, that they're not meeting no meetings. What do you do in those bylaws? How can we curb the bylaws? Understanding how will you understand why a person is being absent, you know, and not just calling the person and saying, okay, you know, you haven't been to such and such amount of meetings. I don't think you are. I think you should be replaced. One of the things that I don't like to be subjected to by cis folks, especially cis white folks, to try to replace me as a trans woman of color who does so much for HIV and AIDS within New York City and on a national level. So if you do call my number or send me an email, please be very clear on why you're calling and asking me, and please listen to me. Because as you see, I brought my child today to let some of you know that I'm not only a woman of trans experience, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, and I'm mobile, and there's things that I break New York City down. So when it comes to committees and councils like this sort, if you're trying to replace folks, try to find out what are their activities and what they're doing. You know, that's just all I gotta say.
Thank you, Kim. So we should move on to, yes,
Carlos?
I'm going to move on to public comment. Okay, so there is one person approaching about public comment. People have their hands up for anything else? No, okay, so Ron Joyner asked me to do public comment, and then we'll be other council members. And I'd like people to please remember try to keep within a 2-minute time frame if possible.
Yes, this is going to be quick. I just want to, I know at times we revise things as we go by, doing surveys and other literature that we hand out. But I just want to read what was given to us in this, as far as the survey was concerned, what was given to us at the Consumer Committee and was omitted here at this meeting. And my concern is that you will omit a survey highlight. And I know that could very well be a good reason. But I'm going to read what was given to us and what was omitted. I quote, 49% response rate among sample active clients compared to 30% response rate in 2012. Pilot. 72% of clients very satisfied with service overall. Really. 73% of clients provided responses to open-ended questions. 38% of those who provided comments had suggestions for improvements. Those with suggestions for improvement less likely to have been very satisfied. Now you remember, when I give you these percentages, we're talking about percentage of 49% total response. Demographically responsive sample, 90% electronic survey completion, more complete data from electronic survey, 3% were missing more than 2 responses versus 5% of paper surveys. 75% of clients who use electronic format provided comments versus 53% of those who use paper. Now you got to realize these high numbers we're talking about is out of 49% of responders. Thank you.
Thank you. So I saw 2 hands over here up for public comment, I presume.
Lisa, I'm speaking, going back to the beginning, Saul, yes, yes. It really speaks to me because I can hear it in your voice and I can see it in your presence. When this was presented to trauma-informed care, I believe at the end of the year, the beginning of the year, I was very excited because I'm mainly a mental health advocate and a trauma survivor. So this that you brought up to the table and the violence and the pulse, it speaks to why trauma-informed care is going to be so vitally important. A lot of us that are living with HIV and AIDS, and a lot of transgender community, LGBT, thank you, because I'm getting a little emotional, that there are experiences, lived experiences that happen in our lives that we press through some things. The difference between a scab and a scar is a scab is something that can be reopened and will continue to bleed, get infected, create pain. A scar is something that will be with you for a lifetime, but it stops bleeding. And trauma-informed care is a component that helps us to realize that we're not what happens to us. I might have been a domestic violence victim, but that's not who I am living as. Like you said, not a victim. It was something that happens to us. A lot of us will push past pain and try to function and not do it very well. And a lot of people may not understand that at any second you could collapse, have a nervous breakdown, look seemingly fine, make all these meetings, and then one day you just disappear because you've collapsed from the trauma. You've collapsed from the stress. So what I wanted to say and leave with that is, what I learned to say is, I am not what happens to me. I've been through something, but I am not what I've been through. But a lot of us are not able to, because of lack of support systems and lack of understanding, lack of tolerance, the stigmatization, to be able to get to that point. If I wasn't in a mental health trauma-informed care movement, I probably would never have applied to sit at this table today. So my heart and my support goes to you. And I am asking that, you know, in light of what we've gone through in the last 30 days, and seen and felt, that we really need to get a presentation for trauma-informed care, because I think moving forward, it's going to be very vital. So that's my comment.
Everyone, I'm only going to take 4 minutes. This will be very brief. I just want to give everybody a heads up that there's going to be a couple of events happening this month all around hepatitis. My name is Carlos Rosario. I'm the state organizer around the Hepatitis C campaign for local New York. This month, on the 12th, the Hepatitis C Task Force, which is an initiative of the Department of Health, is hosting its first consumer committee meeting That's going to be hosted by M. Blanca, Local New York, and the task force. It's going to be from 12 to 2 p.m. That meeting is only for consumers. That's going to be at M. Blanca at 215 West 125th Street. And then the second event for this month is at the end of the month on the 27th. With the New York State Hepatitis C Coalition and a number of agencies, both in New York City and in the different regions that we've been visiting, we've been hosting a series of regional town halls. Now, these town halls are focused on the hepatitis C epidemic, all leading towards a summit, which will produce a blueprint, just like ETE, which the community would champion to address the hepatitis C epidemic. So far we've done Albany, Buffalo, Syracuse, and now we're moving on to Yonkers. So Yonkers, we're in the Westchester area. So we're going to be in Yonkers on the 27th, which is a Tuesday from 2 to 4 p.m. at 1 Larkin Center. If you want more information on that, if you would like to join these regional town halls and be a part of that, give me a call or email me and I'll send you a lot of information. So Carlos at local-ny.org. Thank you.
I think that's the end of public comments. Thank you, sir. We're adjourned.
We're almost adjourned. I want to thank you today for passing a budget worth $100 million. $100 million will pay for 20,000 people services for the next year. In total, this council, working with the grantee, has brought to this city over $2 billion in Ryan White funding, and today you added $100 million to that. Thank you for your work in this council. Thank you for the work in the committees. We're coming to the end of this semester, if you will, or this road, this session. We have one more meeting in August. We have a number of committee meetings throughout the month of July. So stick with us. Our next meeting in August, we will be talking about our budget for 2017. So again, thank you for your participation, and I hear a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
Motion to adjourn. Thank you. We'll see you in August.